The Great Hall of Nexus Prime floated in the darkness between stars. It was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known galaxy. 12 elder races had come together 1,000 years ago to create this place. Here, they made laws. Here, they decided the fate of worlds. And here, on this cold morning in the year 2847, they would decide whether 4,000 humans would live or die. Captain Una Park stood at the observation window of her ship, the horizon's edge. She watched the massive station turn slowly against the black canvas of space. Lights glittered across its surface like a city in the void. Somewhere inside that station, her people were fighting for their lives with nothing but words. "Captain," said Lieutenant Do-Yoon Lee from behind her, "the council session has begun. Ambassador Han is speaking now." Una turned from the window. Do-Yoon was a good officer. Young, but steady. His face showed the same worry that she felt in her chest. "Put it on the main screen," she said. The screen flickered to life. The council chamber appeared, a vast circular room with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Representatives from 12 species sat in their designated areas. Some had scales. Some had shells. Some had too many eyes or too few limbs. And in the smallest section, barely visible, sat the human delegation. Ambassador Jisoo Han stood at the central platform. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. She had served humanity for 30 years in this chamber. She had fought for every small victory, every minor trade agreement, every tiny step forward. Now she faced her greatest battle. "Honored members of the Confederation," Jisoo said, her voice calm but firm, "I stand before you to speak for 4,000 of my people. They are miners, engineers, doctors, teachers. They are families, children. They built their homes on Kepler 7b in good faith, using coordinates that were provided to them by official channels." A sound came from the upper tiers. It was Elder Voth, High Speaker of the Confederation. He was Keth, an insectoid species with a hard shell and clicking mandibles. His species had ruled the Confederation for centuries. When he spoke, others listened. "The coordinates were false," Elder Voth said. "The humans built their colony on sacred Keth ground. This is not disputed." "With respect, Elder," Jisoo replied, "we do dispute it. We have evidence that the coordinates were changed after they were issued. Someone altered the records. Someone wanted this to happen." The chamber buzzed with whispers. Elder Voth raised one of his forearms for silence. "You accuse without proof," he said. "The law is clear. Sacred ground has been violated. The punishment is cleansing." Una felt her stomach turn cold. Cleansing. Such a clean word for such a dirty act. It meant death. Complete death. Every man, woman, and child on that colony would be killed. "I asked for time," Jisoo said. 30 days to investigate. 30 days to find the truth. Surely the Confederation values justice over speed. Elder Voth made a sound that might have been laughter. "The law does not wait, Ambassador. The violation is clear. The punishment is clear. We will vote." Una watched as the representatives prepared their votes. She knew how this would end. She had known since the session began. Humanity had been part of the Confederation for 200 years, but they were still considered children, newcomers. Their voice meant little in this chamber. The vote was called. One by one, the species declared their position. The Keth voted for immediate cleansing. The crystalline beings of Theron agreed. The gas dwellers of Vex-4 agreed. The water world representatives agreed. On and on it went. 11 voices calling for the death of 4,000 humans. Only one voice said no. "The motion passes," Elder Voth announced. "The cleansing will proceed at dawn, local time on Kepler 7b. human military forces are forbidden from interfering. Any attempt to stop the cleansing will result in humanity's expulsion from the Novoman Confederation and a declaration of war against your species. Jisoo Han stood frozen at the platform. Her face showed nothing, but Yuna could see her hands shaking. This is murder, Jisoo said quietly. History will remember this as murder. History is written by those who survive, Elder Voth replied. Your people would do well to remember that. The screen went dark as the session ended. Yuna stood in silence. Around her, her crew waited for orders. No one spoke. No one knew what to say. Captain, Do-hyun finally said. What do we do? Yuna closed her eyes. Her brother Junho was on that colony. He had left Earth 5 years ago to work as a geological engineer. He had sent her messages full of hope and excitement. He loved his work. He loved the new world he was helping to build. And now, in a few hours, he would die. Unless she did something. Contact High Command, she said. Encrypted channel. I need to speak with Admiral Kang directly. The communication took several minutes to establish. When Admiral Sujin Kang appeared on screen, her face was stone. She was an older woman with short white hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. Captain Park, the Admiral said. I assume you watched the vote. Yes, Admiral. I need orders. My ship is the closest human vessel to Kepler 7b. If we move now, we might be able to evacuate some of the colonists before... No. The word hit Yuna like a physical blow. Admiral, there are 4,000 people. I know how many people there are, Captain. Admiral Kang's voice was hard, but not unkind. Do you know how many people live on Earth? How many humans exist in all our colonies combined? If we interfere, the Confederation will declare war. We cannot win that war. Not yet. So we do nothing? We let them die? We follow orders. We protect the greater whole. That is our duty. Yuna felt something break inside her. Something she had held together her whole life. Duty, honor, following the chain of command. These things had meant everything to her. Now they felt like chains around her wrists. My brother is on that colony, she said. Admiral Kang was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. I know. I'm sorry, Yuna. Truly. But I need you to stand down. I need you to trust that this is not the end. Can you do that? Yuna wanted to scream. She wanted to fly her ship directly at the Keth fleet and fight until they killed her. But she was a soldier. She had given her life to the service. And soldiers follow orders. Yes, Admiral, she heard herself say. I understand. Good. Maintain your position. Observe and report. Do not engage under any circumstances. That is a direct order. The screen went dark. Yuna stood alone on the bridge of her ship. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere out there, her brother was preparing to die, and she would do nothing to stop it. Do-hyun approached her carefully. Captain, are you all right? Yuna turned to face him. Her eyes were dry. Her voice was steady, but something in her had changed. Something that would never change back. No, she said. I'm not all right, but I will be. Set course for Kepler 7b. We're going to watch. Watch, Captain? Yes, we're going to watch everything. We're going to record everything. And when this is over, we're going to make sure the galaxy never forgets what happened here. She walked to her command chair and sat down. The stars wheeled past as the ship changed course. Tomorrow, 4,000 humans would die, and Yuna Park would remember every single one of them. The sun rose slowly over Kepler 7b. It was a red dwarf star, smaller and cooler than Earth's sun, and it painted the rocky landscape in shades of orange and pink. On any other morning, Junho Park would have stood at his window and watched the light spread across the mountains. He loved this world. He had helped build something here. But this was not any other morning. Junho stood in the main square of New Bizen. Around him, the entire colony had gathered. 4,000 faces looked toward the sky, waiting for death to arrive. Some people cried. Some prayed. Most stood in silence, holding their families close. "We should fight," said Sergeant Hiwubik. He was the head of colony security, a former soldier with broad shoulders and hard eyes. But even he looked scared now. "We can't just stand here and let them kill us." "Fight with what?" Dr. Mira Kwan asked. She was the colony's only doctor, a gentlewoman who had delivered half the babies in New Bizen. "We have 12 security officers and 3 old rifles. They have warships. Then we die fighting. At least we die with honor. Honor won't bring back the children." Junho listened to them argue, but his mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about his sister. Yuna was out there somewhere, aboard her ship. She would be watching. He wondered if she had tried to help. He wondered if she was angry. He hoped she wouldn't do anything stupid. A hand touched his arm. He turned to find Yoonji Song standing beside him. She was the colony's schoolteacher, a young woman with kind eyes and a soft voice. The children loved her. "Junho," she said, "I need your help. We're moving the children to the deep mines. It probably won't matter, but we have to try." Junho nodded. Doing something was better than waiting. "Let's go." They gathered the children from the square. There were almost 400 of them, ranging from babies in their mother's arms to teenagers who tried to look brave. Yoonji led them through the streets of New Bizen, past the small houses and the medical center and the school where she had taught them to read and write. The mines were at the edge of the colony, carved deep into the mountains. Junho had mapped every tunnel himself. He knew which ones went deepest, which ones were safest. He led the group into the darkness, away from the sky that would soon turn to fire. "Miss Yoonji," a small girl asked, "are the bad aliens really coming?" Yoonji knelt down to look at her. The girl's name was Minji. She was 7 years old and loved to draw pictures of the mountains. "Yes, sweetheart," Yoonji said. "They're coming. But we're going to hide down here where it's safe, okay? And I'm going to tell you a story while we wait." "What kind of story?" "A story about Earth, the planet where your grandparents came from." They moved deeper into the mines. The walls were cold and damp, lit only by emergency lights. Junho helped Dr. Mira set up a small medical station near the back. She was preparing bandages and medicine, even though they both knew it wouldn't matter. "You know this won't save them," Junho said quietly. Mira looked at him with tired eyes. "No, but at least they won't see it coming. At least they'll have hope until the very end. Sometimes that's all we can give people." Above ground, Sergeant Hyunwoo had organized his defense. 12 men and women stood at the edge of the colony, armed with mining tools and 3 old rifles. They had built small barricades from supply crates. It was pointless, and everyone knew it. But they would not die hiding. "Contact," one of the officers shouted. Ships coming through the atmosphere. Hyunwoo raised his rifle and looked at the sky. Through the orange clouds, he could see dark shapes descending. 1, 2, 3. He stopped counting at 12. 12 warships for a colony of miners and farmers. "They really want to make sure, don't they?" he said. The Keth fleet spread out above New Bizen. They were sleek black vessels, built for war, covered in weapons. They floated in perfect formation, blocking out the morning sun. Then the broadcast began. Elder Voth's voice echoed across the colony, projected from the ships above. "By unanimous decision of the Galactic Confederation, this illegal settlement is hereby cleansed. May your species learn from this correction. Yunwu felt something cold settle in his chest. Not fear, something else. Something that felt like hate. Fire, he said. His small force opened up with everything they had. Bullets and mining lasers flew toward the sky. They hit nothing. The ships were too far away, too well armored. It was like throwing stones at a mountain. The Keth didn't even bother to fire back at them. They simply ignored the tiny humans on the ground and began their bombardment. The first plasma bolt hit the center of the colony. The explosion was blinding. Buildings vanished in an instant, replaced by a crater of molten rock. The shockwave threw Hyungwoo off his feet. He scrambled up, ears ringing, and saw the second bolt coming down. It hit the medical center, then the school, then the housing blocks. One by one, the places where people had lived and loved and dreamed were erased from existence. In the mines below, Junho felt the mountains shake. Dust fell from the ceiling. The children screamed. Yoonji pulled them close, still telling her story, her voice steady even as tears ran down her face. "Earth has blue oceans," she said. "So much water that you could sail for days and never see land. And the sky is blue too, not orange like here. And there are trees everywhere, green and tall, and birds that sing in the morning." Another explosion. Closer this time. The lights flickered and died. In the darkness, Junho found Yoonji's hand. "Keep talking," he whispered. "They need to hear your voice." Above them, the bombardment continued. The Keth were thorough. They destroyed everything. Every building. Every vehicle. Every piece of equipment. They turned the rocky soil into glass and the air into poison. 7 minutes. That was how long it took to kill 4,000 people. When the last echo faded, the Keth fleet rose back into the sky. Their mission was complete. The sacred ground had been cleansed. Far away, aboard the horizon's edge, Captain Yuna Park watched through her ship's sensors. Her crew stood frozen around her, unable to look away from the destruction on their screens. The colony was gone. In its place was a smoking crater, still glowing with heat. No life signs. No movement. Nothing but silence and ash. "Captain," Dohyun said, his voice cracking. "The transmission? It's over. They're leaving." Yuna didn't respond. She stared at the screen, at the place where her brother had lived, where he had worked and dreamed and built a future that would never come. She thought about the last message he had sent her. 3 weeks ago, he had been excited about a new mineral deposit they had found. He had made jokes about visiting Earth someday. He had said he missed her. And now he was gone. "Record everything," she finally said. Her voice was flat, dead. "Every sensor reading. Every piece of data. I want a complete record of what happened here." "Yes, Captain, but what do we do with it?" Yuna turned away from the screen. Her face was empty, but her eyes burned with something dark and cold. "We save it. We share it. We make sure everyone knows what happened on this day. And then..." She paused. Her hands closed into fists at her sides. "And then we make them pay." On Earth, the broadcasts had been watched in real time. 1 million people stood in Seoul's Unity Square, staring at giant screens that showed the destruction of New Bizen. No one moved. No one spoke. They simply watched as their people died. When the screens went dark, the silence continued. But it was not the silence of defeat. It was the silence of a storm gathering strength. The silence before thunder. Humanity had received a message today. A message written in fire and blood. It said, "Know your place. Accept your fate. Submit or die." But the Confederation had made a terrible mistake. They had thought humans would break. They had thought fear would make them obedient. They were wrong. In the darkness of space, The ashes of New Bison drifted on solar winds. 4,000 voices had been silenced. But 4 billion more were just beginning to speak. And when they finally spoke, the galaxy would tremble. 6 months had passed since the massacre. 6 months of silence. 6 months of nothing. The galaxy had moved on. The Keth celebrated their successful discipline of the young species. Other Confederation members nodded in approval. The humans had learned their place. Order had been restored. Or so they believed. In the council chamber of Nexus Prime, Elder Voth addressed the assembled representatives with satisfaction. His mandibles clicked as he spoke. The human problem has been solved, he declared. They have withdrawn their ships. They have stopped their trade. They have gone quiet. As I predicted, they needed only a firm hand to understand their position in the galaxy. The other species murmured agreement. The crystalline beings of Theron noted that human communications had dropped by 90%. The gas dwellers of Vex 4 reported that human vessels had completely abandoned 3 border stations. Everything pointed to a broken species licking its wounds. But not everyone was convinced. Ambassador Kira of the Velith, a feline species known for their cunning, raised a concern. Silence can mean many things, she said. A wounded animal is silent, but so is a hunting predator. Elder Voth dismissed her with a wave. The humans are not predators. They are prey. They have always been prey. They simply forgot it for a time. Far from Nexus Prime, hidden behind the moons of Jupiter, humanity was not quiet at all. Director Bong Ho Shin stood in the command center of Station Shadow, the most secret facility in human space. Hundreds of screens surrounded him, showing data from 1,000 spy satellites and hidden sensors. His agents had spent 6 months gathering information. Now they had found the truth. "Show me again," he said. His assistant brought up the evidence on the main display. Communication records, financial transfers, navigation data. All of it pointed to one conclusion. The Keth planted the false coordinates themselves, the assistant said. They moved the sacred site boundary 2 weeks before the colony was established. The original maps show Kepler 7b was in neutral space. They changed the records to create the violation. So it was a trap from the beginning. Yes, Director. They wanted an excuse to punish humanity, to show us our place. Byung-ho felt the cold anger that had lived in his chest for 6 months grow a little colder. He had suspected this. Everyone had suspected it. But now they had proof. "Send this to Councilwoman Lim," he said. "It's time." 3 days later, the leaders of Earth's unified government gathered in the deepest bunker beneath Seoul. Councilwoman Hana Lim stood at the head of the table, a small woman with silver hair and eyes like steel. She had led humanity through 2 decades of peace. Now she would lead them to war. "You have all seen the evidence," she said. The massacre was planned. Our people were murdered, not for violating sacred ground, but because the Keth wanted to teach us a lesson. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans can be controlled. The room was silent. Every face showed the same mixture of grief and rage. "We have a choice," Hana continued. "We can accept this. We can stay quiet. We can remain in the Confederation as second-class citizens, always afraid, always obedient. Or," she paused, letting the word hang in the air, "or we can remind the galaxy what humanity is capable of." Admiral Sujin Kang spoke next. She had aged 10 years in 6 months. The guilt of ordering Captain Park to stand down had carved deep lines in her face. "If we choose to fight, we will win," she said. "I would not say this if I did not believe it. 6 months we have been preparing. Our shipyards have been working day and night. Our scientists have made breakthroughs that the Confederation cannot imagine. We are ready. How many ships? Someone asked. Enough. And they are not like any ships the galaxy has seen before. The vote was called. It was unanimous. Humanity would leave the Confederation, and they would leave a message that would never be forgotten. In the orbital shipyards above Jupiter, Dr. Ariam No walked among her creations. She was the chief architect of Project Prometheus, the secret program that would change everything. The ships floated in vast construction bays, sleek and deadly. They were beautiful in a terrible way. Their hulls were made of materials that shouldn't exist, compounds that her team had invented in desperate late-night sessions. Their weapons could punch through any known armor. Their engines were twice as fast as anything in the Confederation fleet. But the real weapon was something else entirely. Ariam stopped at a viewing window and looked at the device being installed in the lead ship. They called it the Equalizer. It was a targeted electromagnetic pulse that could disable all technology on a planet's surface. No communications, no power, no weapons. Complete helplessness without killing a single person. "It's ready?" asked a voice behind her. Ariam turned to find Commodore Una Park standing in the doorway. She had been promoted 3 months ago, given command of the First Strike Fleet. Her eyes had changed since Kepler 7b. They were harder now, colder. "It's ready," Ariam confirmed. "Every ship in your fleet has been equipped. When you arrive at Veth Prime, you'll be able to shut down their entire civilization with the push of a button." "Good." Una walked to the window and looked at the ships. Her ship, her fleet, her revenge. "When do we leave?" 2 days. The anniversary of the massacre. Una nodded slowly. Fitting. On Earth, preparations continued. Colonies were quietly evacuated. Stations were abandoned. Ships were moved to hidden positions. To outside observers, it looked like humanity was collapsing, falling apart from grief and fear. The Confederation watched and smiled. The lesson had been learned. The young species had been broken. They had no idea what was coming. On the night before the anniversary, Admiral Sujin Kang addressed her fleet commanders through secure channels. Her face was calm, but her voice carried the weight of everything they had suffered. "Tomorrow we begin," she said. "Our operation has 3 objectives. First, we will strike the Keth homeworld and disable their defenses. We will show them what true power looks like. Second, we will seize Nexus Prime and capture the council members who voted for our people's death. They will face justice. Third, we will broadcast the truth to every corner of the galaxy. Everyone will know what the Keth did. Everyone will know why we fight." She paused, looking at the faces on her screen. These were good officers. Good people. They had all lost someone at Kepler 7b. "I want to be clear about one thing," she continued. "We are not monsters. We will not become what we fight against. There will be no massacres, no innocent deaths. We will use our power to achieve justice, not revenge. The galaxy will see that humanity is better than those who tried to destroy us." Commodore Una Park listened to the Admiral's words. She understood them. She even agreed with them. But deep in her heart, in the place where her brother's memory lived, she wanted more than justice. She wanted them to feel what she had felt. She wanted them to know the helplessness, the horror, the grief. She wanted them to suffer. But she was a soldier, and soldiers follow orders. "Understood, Admiral," she said. "The First Strike Fleet is ready." At midnight, the fleet moved into position. 300 human warships, hidden in the darkness between stars, waiting for the signal. And then, exactly 1 year after the massacre of New Bizen, a transmission was broadcast across every frequency in the galaxy. It began with faces. 4,000 faces. Men, women, children. Each one appeared for a single second, just long enough to be seen, to be recognized as a person who had lived and loved and dreamed. 4,000 faces, 4,000 lives, 4,000 reasons for what came next. Then came the words, spoken in every language the galaxy knew. 1 year ago, you voted to kill our children. You called it justice. You called it cleansing. You thought we would forget. You thought we would accept our place. You were wrong. The transmission ended with a final message, displayed in letters of burning light. We are coming for you. Across the galaxy, billions of beings watched the message. The HFY Council dismissed it as an empty threat. The other Confederation species waited nervously, unsure what to think. Only Ambassador Kira of the Velith understood. She had warned them. She had told them that silence could mean many things. Now she understood exactly what the human silence had meant. It had meant preparation. It had meant patience. It had meant the gathering of a storm that would sweep across the stars. And as dawn broke over Veth Prime, the Keth homeworld, that storm finally arrived. Elder Voth received the human transmission in his private chambers on Veth Prime. He watched the 4,000 faces scroll past. He read the final message. And he laughed. Foolish creatures, he said to his advisors. They threaten us with words. Let us answer with action. Within the hour, he had ordered the largest military operation in Confederation history. 12 combined fleets from 7 species would jump to human space and end this rebellion before it began. 3,000 warships carrying millions of soldiers. It would be the greatest show of force the galaxy had ever seen. The fleets assembled at the designated coordinates and made the jump to faster-than-light speed. Destination, Earth. Travel time, 6 hours. But when they arrived, they found nothing. Earth was there, spinning peacefully in the void. But the orbital stations were empty. The defensive platforms were abandoned. Not a single human ship waited to oppose them. The fleet commanders were confused. Had the humans fled? Had their threat been nothing but empty words? Then the reports started coming in. Admiral, priority message from Homeworld Defense. What is it? Veth Prime is under attack. Unknown number of human vessels. They came out of nowhere. Elder Voth had made a terrible mistake. He had sent his fleet away to crush a rebellion that wasn't there. And in doing so, he had left his homeworld defenseless. Commodore Una Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Remembrance. Through the view screen, she could see Veth Prime growing larger as her fleet approached. It was a beautiful world, covered in forests and vast underground cities. 18 billion Keth lived there. 18 billion lives that she could end with a single order. She thought about her brother. She thought about New Bizon. She thought about the 7 minutes of fire that had killed everyone she loved. Commodore, said Lieutenant Doyen Lee, we're in range. The Keth orbital defenses are minimal. They're hailing us, demanding we identify ourselves. Una smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Open a channel. All frequencies. I want everyone on that planet to hear this. The communication systems hummed to life. Una stepped forward, facing the camera that would broadcast her image across an entire world. Elder Voth, she said, I am Commodore Una Park of the Human First Strike Fleet. 1 year ago, you ordered the deaths of 4,000 of my people. You called it a cleansing. You said we needed to learn our place. She paused, letting her words sink in. Today, you will learn yours. On the planet below, panic spread through the underground cities. The Keth had never been invaded. Their homeworld had never been threatened. They had always been the ones delivering punishment, never receiving it. Now they looked up at the sky and saw human warships blocking out the stars. Launch all defenses, Elder Voth commanded. Call back the fleet. Mobilize the planetary guard. We will crush these insects. But it was already too late. Yuna gave the order, and her fleet opened fire. But they didn't target cities. They didn't rain destruction on civilian populations. Instead, they surgically destroyed every military installation, every weapons platform, every defensive satellite in orbit. The battle, if it could be called that, lasted 12 minutes. The Keth defenses were designed to hold off pirates and small raiding parties. They had never imagined facing a fleet like this, with weapons they had never seen before. When the last defense platform fell silent, Yuna gave her second order. Deploy the equalizer. The device activated with a pulse of energy that swept across Veth Prime like a wave. On the surface, every light went dark. Every vehicle stopped moving. Every communication device went silent. The Keth, who had built their civilization on technology, suddenly found themselves helpless. No power, no weapons, no way to call for help. 18 billion Keth sat in darkness, waiting for the death that they had delivered to others so many times before. But it didn't come. Instead, every screen on the planet flickered back to life, powered by human transmitters. And on those screens, the truth was finally revealed. Yuna broadcast the evidence that director Byung-ho Shin had gathered. The falsified coordinates, the moved boundaries, the communications proving that the Keth High Council had planned the massacre from the beginning. You told the galaxy that we violated your sacred ground, Yuna said. This was a lie. You created the violation. You murdered our people to send the message. And now the galaxy will know what you really are. On Veth Prime, the Keth watched in silence. Many had believed their government's story. They had thought the humans were criminals who deserved punishment. Now they saw the truth, and many of them felt something they had never felt before: shame. At the same time, human forces struck Nexus Prime. Admiral Sujin Kang led the assault personally. Commanding her fleet from the bridge of the battleship Unity, the Confederation Council had remained on the station, confident that the human threat was being dealt with elsewhere. They never expected an attack on their seat of power. The human ships surrounded Nexus Prime, cutting off all escape routes. Marine teams boarded the station, moving quickly through the corridors. They encountered little resistance. The station's security forces were trained to handle disputes between diplomats, not military invasions. Within 2 hours, the council members were in custody. 11 representatives from 11 species, including Elder Voth, who had been brought from his trap position on Veth Prime. Admiral Kang faced the captured council in the very chamber where they had voted for the massacre. 1 year ago, you sat in these seats and decided that 4,000 humans deserved to die, she said. You did not investigate. You did not delay. You simply voted, and our people burned. Elder Voth's mandibles clicked in defiance. You cannot do this. We are the Confederation. We are the law. You are the law, Kang replied. Now you are prisoners, and you will face trial for your crimes. Meanwhile, the Confederation fleet that had jumped to Earth received word of the disaster. They tried to return home, but their FTL drives began failing one by one. Human ships had seeded their route with disruption mines, invisible devices that interfered with faster-than-light travel. 3,000 warships, the pride of the Confederation, found themselves stranded in empty space. They could only watch from light years away as their empire crumbled. The human broadcast continued, reaching every corner of the galaxy. News networks on 100 worlds carried the story. The Keth conspiracy, the human counterstrike, the capture of the council. In living rooms and public squares across known space, billions of beings watched humanity reveal its true strength. They had always seen humans as weak, as newcomers, as children playing at being a spacefaring species. Now they saw something else entirely. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Commodore Una Park watched the broadcasts spread across the galaxy. Her fleet held position above Veth Prime, ready for any threat. But no threat came. The Keth were helpless, and everyone knew it. Lieutenant Do Yun Lee approached her carefully. "Commodore, the Admiral is asking for a status update. Also," he hesitated, "there are reports of Keth civilians panicking. They think we're going to bomb their cities like they bombed ours." Una was quiet for a long moment. Part of her wanted to let them fear. Part of her wanted to hurt them the way they had hurt her. An eye for an eye. A massacre for a massacre. But then she thought about what her brother would say. Junho had always been the kind one, the one who believed in building rather than destroying. He had gone to Kepler 7b because he wanted to create something new, not to fight. If she burned Veth Prime, she would become exactly what she hated. And Junho's memory deserved better than that. "Open a channel to the surface," she said. "Let them hear my voice." She spoke to 18 billion Keth, her enemies, the people who had celebrated the death of her brother. "People of Veth Prime," she said, "I know you are afraid. I know you expect us to do to you what your leaders did to us. But we are not like them. We will not murder innocents to send a message. We will not kill children to prove a point." She took a deep breath. "Your lights will return. Your power will be restored. You will live. But remember this moment. Remember what it felt like to be helpless. Remember and understand why we fight. Not for revenge, for justice. And because every life, even yours, has value." She cut the transmission and turned to Doyen. "Begin restoring power to civilian areas. Maintain military lockdown on government facilities only." Doyen nodded, a small smile on his face. "Yes, Commodore. Right away." As the lights slowly returned to Veth Prime, Una walked to the observation window and looked down at the world below. She had won. Humanity had won. But the victory felt hollow, like an empty room where something precious used to live. She pressed her hand against the cold glass and thought of her brother. "We did it, Junho," she whispered. "We made them remember." Somewhere in the darkness, she hoped he could hear her. 1 year had passed since humanity turned the galaxy upside down. 1 year since the capture of the Council. 1 year since the old order had crumbled and something new had begun to rise from its ashes. The Galactic Confederation was dead. In its place, Ambassador Jisoo Han had proposed something different. A new structure called the Galactic Assembly, built on principles that the old Confederation had forgotten. Every species would have an equal voice. No single group could condemn another without proof. Every accusation would be investigated before judgment. Many had doubted it would work. The galaxy was used to the old ways, where the strong did what they wanted and the weak suffered in silence. But humanity had shown that the weak could become strong, and the strong could fall. The trial of the Keth High Council had lasted 3 months. The evidence was overwhelming. Communication records, financial documents, testimony from Keth officials who had grown tired of lies. In the end, Elder Voth and his conspirators were found guilty of conspiracy and mass murder. They were not executed. Humanity had made that clear from the beginning. There would be no death sentences, no massacres in return. Instead, the council members were exiled to a barren moon at the edge of known space. They would live out their days there, stripped of all power, remembered only for their crimes. On the day of the sentencing, Elder Voth had spoken his final words to the court. "You will regret this mercy," he said, his mandibles clicking with hatred. "Weakness invites destruction. One day, another species will rise and crush you, just as we should have crushed you when we had the chance." Ambassador Jisoo Han had replied calmly, "Perhaps you're right. Perhaps kindness is weakness. But we would rather be weak and good than strong and evil." That is the human way. Now, on the first anniversary of the Confederation's fall, Jisoo stood before the Galactic Assembly. The Great Hall of Nexus Prime had been rebuilt, redesigned to reflect its new purpose. The seats were arranged in a circle now, with no high platforms or positions of honor. Every species sat at the same level. 30 species had joined the new assembly. Some had been enemies. Some had been afraid. But all had chosen to try something new. Jisoo looked around the room at the faces watching her. She saw fear in some eyes, hope in others. She saw the weight of history pressing down on them all. 1 year ago, she began. Humanity came to the stars, hoping to find friends. We found instead that the galaxy was ruled by fear. The strong dominated the weak. Justice was a word without meaning. We were told to accept our place, to bow our heads, to let our children be murdered without complaint. She paused, letting the silence fill the room. We refused, not because we wanted war, not because we sought power, but because we believed that every life has value. We believed that the strong do not have the right to destroy the weak. We believed that justice matters. She gestured to the assembly around her. Today, we build something new. A galaxy where every voice matters. Where no one species can condemn another without proof and process. Where mercy is strength, not weakness. We proved we have the power to burn worlds. We chose not to. We ask only that you extend us the same courtesy. Councilwoman Hana Lim watched the broadcast from Earth. She sat in her office in Seoul, the same office where she had made the decision to fight back. The decision that had changed everything. Her aide entered with a report. The vote is about to begin. Our projections show unanimous approval of the new charter. Hana nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. She was thinking about the cost. 4,000 lives lost on Kepler 7b. Hundreds more in the fighting that followed. Families torn apart. Children who would never know their parents. Had it been worth it? She didn't know. She probably never would. But she knew that humanity had faced a choice between submission and survival. They had chosen survival. And now they had a chance to build something better. Tell the ambassador she has our full support, Hana said. Whatever she needs. Far from Earth, on the scarred surface of Kepler 7b, Commodore Yuna Park stood among the memorial pillars. 4,000 columns of white stone, each bearing a name, each representing a life that had been taken. She found her brother's pillar near the center of the memorial. The stone was smooth and cold beneath her fingers. Junho Park, 2821-2847, geological engineer. Beloved brother. Yuna had not cried since the massacre. Something inside her had frozen that day, locked away behind walls of ice. She had channeled her grief into action, into planning, into revenge that she had called justice. But now, standing in the silence of the memorial, she felt those walls beginning to crack. I did what you would have hated, she whispered to the stone. I built weapons. I led fleets. I made them afraid. A tear ran down her cheek. But I didn't kill their children. I didn't become them. I hope that's enough. I hope you can forgive me. Lieutenant Doyen Lee approached carefully. He had been her shadow for 2 years now, her most trusted officer. He had seen her at her worst and never judged. Admiral Park, he said gently. The ceremony is about to begin. Admiral. She had been promoted again, given command of the Assembly's peacekeeping fleet. A position that would have seemed impossible 2 years ago. I'll be there, she said. Just give me a moment. Do-hyun nodded and stepped back, giving her space. Yuna looked around at the memorial, at the fields of white stone stretching toward the horizon. New buildings were rising nearby. A new colony was being built. Children would play here again. Families would make their homes in the shadow of the pillars. Life was returning to Kepler 7b. "They're building something new," she said to her brother's memory. "Homes, schools, a future. Just like you wanted. Just like you dreamed." She placed her hand on the pillar one last time. "Goodbye, Junho. I'll keep fighting. Not for revenge anymore. For you. For the future you believed in." She turned and walked toward the ceremony site, where hundreds of people had gathered. Colonists from across human space. Representatives from other species who had come to pay their respects. Reporters broadcasting to billions of viewers across the galaxy. The memorial dedication was brief but powerful. Names were read. Flowers were laid. Songs were sung. And then, as the red sun set over Kepler 7b, a new light appeared in the sky. It was a message projected across the clouds in letters of golden fire. A message that would be seen from space. A message that would endure for generations. Here lie 4,000 souls who dreamed of building a better world. They were taken from us by hatred and fear. But their dream survived. In their memory, we will build that world. We will not forget. We will not fail. We will be worthy of their sacrifice. Yuna stood among the crowd and watched the words burn against the darkening sky. Around her, she heard weeping and laughter and whispered prayers. She heard humanity, battered but unbroken, reaching toward a future that their dead would never see. And in that moment, she finally understood. The galaxy had tried to break them. It had murdered their children and called it justice. It had demanded submission and threatened destruction. But humanity had not broken. They had bent and grieved and raged. And then they had risen, not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as builders, as dreamers, as beings who refused to accept that might makes right. The stars had learned a lesson they would not forget. Humanity was young. Humanity was new to the great game of civilizations. But humanity would not be ignored, would not be dismissed, would not be cleansed. They were here. They were strong. And they would remain. Admiral Yuna Park looked up at the words fading in the sky and made a silent promise to her brother. To the 4,000 dead, to all the generations yet to come. "We remember," she said. "And we always will." The night fell over Kepler 7b, but the lights of the new colony pushed back against the darkness. Children ran through the streets, laughing. Families sat down to dinner in their new homes. Somewhere, someone was telling a story about Earth, about blue skies and green trees, and a world that had given birth to a species that refused to die. The galaxy had changed. The old order was gone. And in its place, something new was growing. Something built on memory. Something built on hope. Something built by humans. And in the endless darkness of space, the stars watched in silence, waiting to see what humanity would do next.